The purpose of this video is to walk you through setting up an LC32 salvo panel. The first thing we will do is build some salvos in Yukon. Open the Yukon app and open your data store. To start creating salvos, you can right-click your SC4 or SC40 and choose Edit, or just double-click your SC4 or SC40 to open the Edit window. After we build the salvos, we will be adding those to our source table. Since we don't want to take away from actual possible source numbers, we will make the max inputs and outputs of your router larger than it actually is. In my example, I have a 72 by 72 router. I will simply change this to 80 by 80 or higher if I need more than 8 salvos. Save this and click OK. Then from the data store page, right-click on your SC4 or SC40 to program it, so that the changes are reflected in your source and destination tables when we start adding salvos to your source table. Once it is programmed with more sources and destinations, reopen your SC4 edit window. Click the Salvos button. This will open the window where we will build the salvos. If you only have one level, it will be selected. If you have more than one level, you will need to specify which level will be affected by the salvo you are creating. The first salvo I want to create is one that will route all my monitors to the way I would like to start a show. Find your first group of destinations and highlight all the ones you would like to add to the salvo. In this case, I am looking for all my monitors. Highlight those destinations and drag them over to the middle of the screen and release. Then simply highlight your first destination and drag over whatever source you want routed to it. If the next source in the list goes on the next monitor, you can simply double-click it and it will be added to the next destination. When you have that salvo all set up to your liking, hit Save. Then go to the top left of the salvo window and select the next salvo. Keep in mind it starts with salvo 0, so my next salvo is salvo 1, and it is my master control salvo. In my example, I will find all the master control destinations and drag them over. Start thinking about what you would like each salvo to be labeled in the panel. I will show you how we will label each salvo, but you should make notes of what sources are routed into each destination for each salvo you create. Follow the same procedure from the previous example and add your sources to each destination. When done, hit Save. Select your next salvo number and continue building the rest of your salvos the same as you did with these two. Continue till all of your salvos are built. In my example, I am creating 7 different ones. When you are done, you can hit the View All Salvos button if you want to check your work. When you are done, hit Save and OK to close the Salvo Edit window. Then hit Save and OK to close the SC4 Edit window. Hit the Save icon on the data store page so that your changes are saved in your data store. Then program your SC4 or SC40 again. When it is done programming, click the Source tab at the bottom of your data store page. This is where we will add the salvos to your source list. This will make it easier to add each salvo to a button on your panel. Notice I have sources in 0 through 71. We will add the first salvo right past our last valid source. In my case, the first salvo will be input 72, which does not actually exist on this router. Click the Add Device button. Make sure your index number is correct. It should be 72 in my example. Sometimes if you have deleted sources previously, it will grab the first available number as opposed to the number you think it is grabbing. For the group name, in the 8-character name, I will name it Salvo. Remember, the first salvo started at 0, so I will name my first salvo Salvo 00. For the 4-character name, you can use SA00. Now, instead of a BNC number under the input section of the level mapping, you will click the options section to the right of the input section. In the drop-down menu, you will select which salvo you are mapping to this source. It is easier to just keep everything the same, so I will select Salvo 0 to map to my Salvo 00 source. Click OK. In my example, I made 7 salvos. I will need to create 6 more. I can simply hit the Replicate button and ask it to do 6 more. Click the index number arrow at the top of the source menu to resort them by index numbers. They will all say Salvos 00 in the router mapping. That will be the only thing you have to change on each newly created Salvo source. Salvo 1 should be changed to Salvo number 1 in the router mapping. Salvo 02 will be changed to Salvo 2, and so forth. When you are done, check to make sure the Salvo numbers match, like in my example shown here. Hit Save, and then save in your data store. At this point, you should program your SC4 or SC40 again. Now we can open an LC32 panel and begin building our Salvo panel. Right-click to edit, or double-click your LC32 panel to open it. It will open a totally blank panel. Start by clicking the Name section in Menu 1. The first thing we want to do is create a Salvo menu. This will be the menu you will see when you first open the panel. Since this is a Salvos only panel, it will be the only menu we create. But you can use these same methods to add a Salvos menu to your other existing panel, or you can add an XY, groups, categories, or other menus to this panel. Since those other menu options are covered in our other videos, we will just build a Salvos only panel in this example. Next, you will need to select the layout of this menu. On an LC32, 16x2 and nav is a good option. That means you have one 32 button partition and the necessary navigation buttons. There are two things you will need to consider when building this menu. The router expects you to select a destination and then a source, even when launching a Salvo. You only need to add one destination to this menu, and this destination will not be affected by the Salvo you choose. Because of this fact, it doesn't really matter which one you choose to add, but you will need to add one destination. Keep in mind when choosing a destination, it must be a destination from level 1. You will then need to decide if you would like to use the Take button when routing. With a direct take, you select a destination and then a particular Salvo you wish to launch. The routes will happen immediately after you select the source Salvo without needing to hit the Take button. With a preset take, you must use the Take button before the route will take place. You select both the destination and the source Salvo, and then the router presets the route to take place after you hit the Take button. Direct takes are quicker and eliminate one step from each route. Preset takes are safer and give you a second to think before committing to the route. Since Salvos make many routes at once, I am going to use a preset destination so that I have to hit the Take button before the Salvo is launched. Click on the Salvos menu you created to activate the partition. Select Destination Preset from the menu. Drag it over to Button 1 and Partition 1 in the middle of the page. See the menu in Partition 1 now says Fixed Preset Destination. If instead you want to do a direct take, no take button necessary before it makes the route, you will select 1 Destination Direct from the Functions menu and drag it over to Button 1 in Partition 1 in the middle of the page. The menu in Partition 1 will say Fixed Router Destination. Then select a destination to add to Button 1 and drag it over to Button 1 in Partition 1. Look at your sources list. On the right-hand side of the screen, find your Salvos group. Click the Salvos group and drag it over to whatever button you want them to start on. If you have less than 31 Salvos, feel free to leave some space between the destination and the Salvos. They will all be in the same partition. If you have more than 32 Salvos, you can add them to the list. Any Salvos past 31 will appear on the next page. You will select your destination and then use the navigation buttons to go to the next page. You can have as many as 128 Salvos. The Salvos in the partition in the middle of the screen will simply be labeled Salvo 0 through Salvo 127. This would not be very helpful to our operators when they go to use the panel. So instead, we will use custom text for each Salvo. This is where the notes you made while building the Salvos will come in handy. Click on each Salvo. To the right of the Salvos, you will see a button menu. There should be a box labeled Primary Text. This is where you will give your Salvo a name that will be displayed on the button in the panel. For example, my Salvo 00 is the Salvo I created to route all my monitors. I will add monitors to the primary text window, and that is the name that will appear on the button in the panel. Salvo 01 is my master control salvo. I will add the name master to the primary text window on Salvo 01. Continue adding the custom names you wish to appear on the panel for each salvo in the list. When you are done, click the Save button in the Panel Edit window. Then click OK. This will close the panel. Click the Save button in your data store window to ensure your work is saved in your data store. Then right-click to program your LC32 panel. Click the Program tab at the bottom of the data store page to check the progress of your programming. When it is done programming, click the System tab to get back to your data store page. Go to your panel or launch a simulated panel from Yukon. You should see the Salvo menu. To launch a salvo from your newly built panel, select your destination first. Again, this destination will not actually have anything routed to it since we are simply firing off salvos. Next, select your salvo. If you chose a direct take, the salvo will be fired and all your routes will take place right after you select the particular salvo. If you chose a preset destination, select the destination and then your salvo. The take button will turn red. The salvo will not be launched until you hit the take button. You can also hit the clear button if you change your mind and decide not to fire the salvo. As with our physical panels, you will not receive a status or tally indicating your salvo has been fired and that the routes have taken place. The router panel will not be able to show all of the statuses from all of the routes in each salvo. Instead, you can launch RMAN and in the View tab, open the event log. This will show the RCP4 salvo take request. It will then show every single route that took place when you fired the salvo. Each salvo take listed will show the destination and source by number. If you would like to see the route status by name, you can look in the tabular status of RMAN. You will see the routes take place in real time. This first screen shows the route status before any salvos are fired. Notice the edit booths. Then I will launch the edit salvo. All edit booths are now routed according to how I set up my edit salvo. Now notice the frame syncs. Then I will launch the frame sync salvo on my panel. All of my frame syncs are now routed according to how I set up the frame sync salvo. Once you see it in action and are satisfied with the salvos, close RMAN. This is all there is to configuring and using an LC32 salvo panel. You can follow the same steps to build an LC80 panel with just one minor menu layout change. Even though I built a salvos only panel, you can use these same methods to add a salvos menu to your other existing panels if you so choose. Thanks for watching, and as always, for all your routing and distribution needs, just ask us.